Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar, which is entitled Can Technology Help Assessment? My name is Keely Holliday, and I'm going to be your host for this session. Janice Pranstesser, who is our Teaching and Learning Consultant on behalf of Promethean, the United Kingdom and Ireland, is going to be your presenter today. I think we're ready to start, so I'm going to hand you over to Janice.
Thanks, Keely. Those of you sitting on the call would have seen me fixing my GMT +1 on there. That's what I get for copying and pasting a card from another lesson from a previous webinar. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are in the world. I think I saw quite a few people from the UK on the call, so fabulous. It's nice that you're joining us even though we've got this stunning weather outside. So let's get started. Now, some of you have joined my class already, but I am going to ask participants if you can join my class tonight because I'm going to get you a little bit involved as well. So you can see the instructions on the screen here. What you're going to need to do is, if you've got a tablet or a smartphone where you can go to a browser on that might be easier than using the computer where you're watching the webinar. Or the other idea is you can open up another browser window on your computer and be able to just flip between. I'll clearly tell you when you should be looking at which view. So if people could take a couple minutes to join my class, you can see on the screen there that you need to open up a browser window and type in classflow.co.uk/student. So make sure that you use co.uk and not .com. If you put .com, you won't join my class. I don't know whose class you might join, but it's not going to be mine. So you need to make sure you put in classflow.co.uk/student. When you see this screen here, you then want to join the class, and my class code is QQQBW. And on the next screen, you'll then be asked to put your name in, to type your name in, and click join anyway. It'd be really great if you are on the call. Well, you will be if you're listening to me talk, but it would be really great if you could take a minute to join on a browser, on a device, or on your computer that you're using as well, so that we can get it hands-on. It's also important because I want you to be able to see the information that's being sent to student devices. So think of it as if we were in a classroom. I would want you to not only be able to see what's on my display at the front, but also the information that I'm sending to the student devices. Okay, so I can tell here that currently I have 7 people joined, and I can have a look there, and it's showing me my class that's joined there. So that's perfect. So we'll see if we can get a few more people on. So just a quick reminder, you want to go to classflow.co.uk/student, and the class code that you put under join class is QQQBW. Okay. I'm going to move on, and hopefully we'll get a couple more people that will join us as we get started. So welcome to tonight's webinar. As Keely said before, the webinar tonight is Can Technology Help Assessment? So we're going to be having a look at how technology, like ClassFlow, can help with assessment in class. So not just summative assessment and gaining that do they know the answer, yes or no, but also formative assessment and helping to build up a picture of learners' understanding as they're moving through your class as well. And for doing this, we're going to be using ClassFlow. So hopefully all of you do realize that this is one of our ClassFlow webinars that you are on. So we are going to be talking about ClassFlow for our online assessment. Okay. Now, just before we get started, and in light of what I just said about using ClassFlow, I want to just get some feedback from you guys, and it just helps me better understand where everybody is in the scheme of things of their understanding of ClassFlow. So what I want to know are you registered for ClassFlow? And then I've got some options here. So you're going to say yes, you're going to choose A for yes, and I've been using it. B for yes, I haven't really used it, and C for not really. And I can see some people putting it in the chat, but you know what, I'm going to do even better than that. because this is what I love about ClassFlow, is instead of having to look back to that chat and scroll through and see my students' answers one at a time, I can use the assessment within the software to do that. So I'm going to use this button here on my toolbar called my polling button. And the poll that I'm going to do this time is multiple. I've got three options, and I'm going to send that to you. Okay? So now, just in case there's anybody who's on the call that hasn't joined, I'm going to show you what the student view looks like here. So I've just switched browser windows. So you can see I've sent the card. The students see the card with the question, and then you need to choose an option and click the submit button down here at the bottom right. Okay, and that's been submitted in. So if I now come back in here, I can have a look up at the top here and see that I've got 2 students in my class who haven't answered yet, but the rest of the class seems to have answered. So I'm just going to click on that and let's have a look. Okay, so I can see here that I've got a couple of A's, I've got lots of B's, so lots of people who have registered but haven't really started to use it yet, and I've also got a couple of A's in there too. Okay, the session tonight, we're going to be focusing specifically on assessment. So it's really the assessment side of ClassFlow. I will be touching on some of the basic use of ClassFlow as well. And a lot of what I see tonight, or what I'm showing tonight, I think the assessment side of it is a fantastic way to get started with the software without having to spend hours trying to prepare lessons and things like that when you're just getting started with the software. Okay, so just in case anybody is, well, like I said, I did see lots of B's and lots of A's. We did a webinar last month that was an introduction. It was sort of the basics of ClassFlow called Using Technology to Increase Student Engagement. All of our webinars are recorded, and the recordings are put up onto our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and then type in Promethean UKI, it'll come up with our YouTube channel as your top search. On there, there's a playlist that has ClassFlow webinars, and that's where you find this one, Using Technology to Increase Student Engagement. That will really take you back to sort of the basics of getting started. But don't despair if you are one of those A's tonight. I still do think that this session will be relevant, and I'm sure that you'll go away with a few ideas to help you get started. And hopefully it will sort of kickstart all of the B's to get into the software and start using it a little bit more. Okay, so let's get started on tonight's session then. So rather than giving paper copies of assessment data, technology can be used to help monitor and update student performance records over time. Now we know this, a lot of us do this. And in fact, this report here, this is a quote taken from the State of Technology and Education report in 2016 and 17 that said, well, over 7 of 10 educators are using online technology to track formal assessment. Only 1 in 3 use it to track informal assessment. So we're using it to track that summative assessment. But what about that day-to-day formative assessment, that building up a picture of our students' learning and using that picture to help us guide the next steps in their learning as well? ClassFlow is great for this because by integrating instant assessment tools such as polls and quick quizzes into the classroom and providing immediate feedback to students, teachers can better adapt their lessons to address any misconceptions or gaps in student knowledge. For many students, tests are stressful, many adults as well, if I'm honest. However, technology can help make formative assessment an integral part of the day-to-day classroom with regular fun polls and quizzes. And ClassFlow does that so nicely. This helps to remove the pressure, engage students, and also gather insights into their progress. And what's more, by sharing learning and answers with the whole class, teachers can further stimulate discussion and create active participation in the classroom. Now, those of you that have joined me will notice that I had a card that I sent out to you there, and this is just telling you about our resourced.classflow.co.uk website. I don't know if you are aware of it yet, but this is a fantastic site where we've got just loads of information about using technology in education. Now, even though it is a Promethean-driven ClassFlow affiliated site, not all the information on there is specifically about Promethean products, about ClassFlow itself. There's a lot of just really great information about using technology in the classroom. So research articles, blogs, infographics, lots of great stuff there. And as you can see, I did a search as I was preparing for this webinar and just put assessment in there, and it came up with 28 results of great pieces of information, great pieces of reading there. So I do recommend people get themselves onto that site, and you can subscribe to it as well so you can get highlights anytime we add something new. So, ClassFlow and assessment. I'm going to ask you another poll right away to get you involved. So which of these three things on the screen do you think that you can do assessment-wise in ClassFlow? So this time I'm going to send it as a creative poll. Now this probably isn't a difficult question, but what I want to do is when I'm building in my assessments, as I'm talking to you, I'm showing you more about what your options are. So in this case, we're looking at the different types of polling. We've already looked at multiple. Now we're going to have a look at creative. So if I send you that creative card, what you then get is the card, but this time you have a toolbar. And on the toolbar, I'm going to get you to pick up your pen tool, and I want you to just tick the ones that you think ClassFlow enables you to do. Don't forget to click that submit button as well once you've answered. Okay, so I'll get everybody to just do that. I can see I'm still waiting on 15 answers coming in. Away we go, ticking down, so I can start to see if my class are answering. Now, if I click on that and go back into my results viewer, you can see that this time my results are quite different than the last poll that we did. And that's because all of the different polls gather information in different ways. So with this particular one, I can click down at the bottom here and I can see the contributions from my class. So I can see lots of different answers coming in there. And I see quite a few people picking all three. And that's correct. You can do all three of these types of assessment within ClassFlow. A couple of other really nice things just to mention here. With each of the cards, when I select it, I have the option to add that card to the current lesson. So if I wanted to take a student's contribution and build on it with my class, I can effectively take it out of here and put it in the main lesson to do that so that we have all of those tools available. And I could even send it out as another poll for my class to answer. Right now, it's in anonymous mode. With all of these, it defaults to anonymous mode, but I do have the option up here that I could show or hide my name. So if I want to see my class names down there, see who contributed what, I have the ability to do that as well. And once I'm finished with my viewer, I can just close that down again. Okay, so as I said, we can do all three of these types of assessments within ClassFlow, and you can see we've already been having a look at that first one there, ad hoc polls. So with ad hoc polls, what they are, what I really like about them is they're kind of in the moment questioning. So it means that I don't have to spend loads of time preparing in advance, because I can use teachable moments in my class where a great question comes up in class and we can poll the class to see what they think. I can gather feedback at any point, check understanding at any point. So I don't have to plan it ahead of time, spend hours creating cards with questions on them. I can just at any point go over here and use my polling options. And what it means is I can assess understanding at any point, check that my learners are on board, know what we're talking about, and aren't falling behind. So it means that I'm not having to wait until the end of the lesson to find out that half my class didn't understand it and I have to teach it again. Okay? I'm just going to click on that to hide that, and I have another question I'm going to ask you. So this time, I'm just going to send out a yes or no, and it's, do you use online polling, or I'm going to send it out as a text. Do you use online polling in your lessons for formative assessment and student feedback already? So we'll just send it out as a text, and I just want people to text in their answers. So is anybody already using online polling for their lessons? Okay, so once you've typed in your answer into the line, then just make sure that you submit it in. Okay, so you click that submit button at the bottom, and I'm just going to have a look there, starting to see people's answers coming in. So we've got some yeses and we've got some no's. Well, hopefully after today's session, we'll have enthused you enough to start using ClassFlow for trying some formative assessment polling with your class. Now, what I could do, as you see here, again, a different question type, a different display of my answers. Oh, student 11 there, fantastic. I can see some things I recognize in there that you're using as well. So what I can do is I can view this in different ways. So if I wanted to, I could view it as a graph, which probably this isn't the best way of viewing this particular piece of information. I can view it as a pie chart, okay? Or we could go back to that just normal text view. I can also show the names or hide the names again. So I can do this with any of the polls that I'm using. And you also see it gives me the time that it took them to answer, so how many seconds it took people to answer as well. I'm just going to come back out of that, close that down. Now what I could do is stop that, and I could say I'm really interested in those people that said yes. So there's some people that said yes, but only one person gave me a little bit more information and told me what they were using. So what I could do is I could just send out another poll. And that, again, is the great thing about polling, is that I can ask as many polls and as many poll types on one card if I want to. So I could just keep asking things. And it means that, you know, we could have maybe one question on a card that as the discussion progresses in the class, I keep checking back to see if their ideas of things have changed. So instead of having to create loads and loads of cards in my lesson, I might be able to build a whole lesson and the discussion just around one particular card, getting feedback and insights from my class by using the polling options. Okay? So just before I move on to the next part, I'm just going to ask Keely if there are any questions that need answering.
We're all good at this stage, Janice. We're all good.
Perfect. Okay. Please remember, any questions you do have, if you put it in the chat, there are some very helpful people on the chat that are able to answer some questions, and also I will pause every once in a while, as I did, so Keely can pose them to me as well. We also like comments, so if you've got other comments as well, that would be great. Now, I just saw a fantastic question that popped up there on the chat, and that was about saving that data that I'd collected from the polling. Yes, you can, but not with the type of class that I've used right now. So I'm going to put that to the side for 1 minute because I am going to talk about that just a little bit further down the webinar, but I just happened to notice that question pop up. Okay, so I will come back to that. So I'm going to get you to participate again. This time, though, it's slightly different because I'm not going to use the polling. This time what I've done is on this card, so you can see here, it's card 8 in my lesson. And card 8 has a lesson-based assessment attached to it. So this is questions that are associated with a particular card in my lesson. And you can see here that it looks slightly different to my other ones. It's got the little assessment symbol and the number 3. And I also have the option to start the question set right from here. I'm going to not start from there because what I also want to show you is I'm going to close that up. I like to have on my nice, beautiful display at the front of my classroom, I like to have my ClassFlow card nice and big so that it's really visual to my class. So I like to hide away my little card thumbnails. So I can also start that lesson-based assessment by clicking on my polls. And you'll see here, ClassFlow has now picked up that there's an assessment attached to this card, and I can start the polling from there. Okay, so I'm just going to start that, and I'm going to give you a minute to just flip to your browser and answer those 3 questions for me. Now, once again, for people who haven't managed to join my class, I'm going to switch over to show you the student view. So unlike with polling, the question doesn't up here on the display, the question is actually sent to the student devices. So you can see here that I've got 3 questions. This is the first question of 3, and my options are here. So I can then choose my answer and submit it. And then my next question comes up. So from here, I can then choose my answer and submit it. Okay, so I'm just going to let my class finish that. So if I could get some of you that could answer that assessment. So you need to make sure you just go through all 3 of them. Make sure you submit at the bottom. Okay, so I can start to see now people's answers coming in. And once again, I'm going to click on our results viewer so we can see what it looks like. Now the view is different again. Because this is a lesson-based assessment and I have multiple questions on a card, the view that I get in my results viewer is very different than it is with the polling. So what I get here, again, is my student names. So we're in anonymous mode, but I could change that. I could put that into named mode if I want. Okay. I see my 3 questions. So these are my 3 questions here, and then I can see underneath my students' answers for all of those 3 questions. The little colors of the dots have different meaning. So obviously green means that it's a correct answer. Red means it's an incorrect answer. This one here, the dark gray, that means that the answer hasn't automatically been scored. But I can go back and score it at another time. So I can have a look at it later and I can apply a score to that as well. If you saw I clicked on that, that then showed me the question what that particular student had answered. I can also click on a question here and then it shows me what the question was, and I can have a look through here to see everything that my class has answered in there as well. So I can view the information in an assessment in different ways in real time, because remember, this assessment could have 20 questions and it could still be running. I could be viewing this without letting my class see it, but I could be viewing this and seeing how my class are progressing along. So I might be able to pick up things like this pupil here is getting red after red after red. So I don't want them to continue getting 20 questions wrong. So I might want to stop and intervene at that point and give them a bit of support because they're obviously struggling. I could also look down to one where everybody was getting the same question wrong. And maybe that tells me something about my teaching, that I need to go back and think about my teaching because obviously the majority of my class isn't getting that correct, isn't understanding it. Okay, so again, lots of information there. We'll just close that down and stop it. Okay, so how did I do that? How did I preset a lesson-based assessment to my card? So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Before we do that, though, I just want to address that question about the storing of that assessment data. So I'm going to exit my class, and in this case, I'm going to say that I don't want to save the changes I've made. Okay, and I'm going to come back into my main ClassFlow account. Right now, you can see I'm in my resources. It's selected and highlighted up here. Just for a minute, I wanted to take you to classes. Now, I had you guys join my class using an ad hoc class. An ad hoc class is fantastic. For something like this, where I want to have participation from my audience, but I'm really not that bothered about having that data from the assessment stored afterwards to look back at. Okay, so I can connect my class really quickly by using that class code, and my ad hoc class code is always the same. And so I can very quickly tell people, go to this URL, put this class code in, and you've joined. But the one drawback of using an ad hoc class is that that data isn't saved. So once I exit a lesson, all of those polls, all that data collected from the polls and from the assessments is no longer saved. So I don't have that anymore. So if you do want to save assessment data, then what you need to do is you need to create a class in ClassFlow. Now, I'm not going to go fully into how to do this. but it is quite straightforward, and there's lots of support built right into the website to help you with these things. So I am just going to show people where you can get started. You want to go to your classes, and then you can see down here all of my classes that I've got listed down the side here on the left. What I want to do is click on this blue button here that says New, and I want to create a new class. So here, I could type in the name of my class, and you can see I was practicing earlier because I already have a class by the name of Webinar. So we'll call it Webinar 2. And that's all the information I'm required to do. And once I've done that, my options for 2 different types of class creations become available. So I could do a student-generated class where individual students in my class have their own ClassFlow accounts, or I could do a teacher-generated class where I input my students' names into it, okay? So different types of classes. And then I would just choose to create either one. I'll just click one for now. And what we get here is some great instructions on how to get started. So it tells me how I can get my students connected, and it tells you here how they then connect when you want to run a lesson with them, okay? You can also look up here at any time for this really helpful one here. If I click on the drop-down menu there, you can see there's lots of really helpful little video tutorials. And this one here I want to draw you to in particular because we are looking at creating classes right now. So great little video tutorials that talk you through how to get started with different areas of ClassFlow. Okay, so that's where you would go to create a class. And with the created class, what I then get is all of that assessment data saved. So if I click on my Promethean July 16 in here, you can see the last assessment that I ran with my class is right here. I can click on the little arrow, which will take me into the full data around that assessment so I can delve deeper into it. If I expand my class here, you'll see that in my classes I start to collect any delivered lessons. This would be all those polling, instant polling that I did with my class, any assignments that I set them, and any assessments as well. Okay? Right. Before I move on to the next part, Keely, are there any questions that I can answer?
Somebody's asked Janice, great question. Can you upload already made PowerPoints into ClassFlow?
There's several ways that you can do that. Yes, you can import a PowerPoint, and you can also embed PowerPoints in different ways on cards. So there's lots of support, as I said, up here in the help to tell you about what you can add to cards as well. So one of the great things about ClassFlow is that you don't have to create everything by scratch within your ClassFlow lesson. You can bring resources from other locations to be able to use within it as well. Anything else, Keely?
Yeah, another great question that's come in. Somebody's asked, how quick is it to create the card to put out to the class and do the ad hoc poll?
An ad hoc poll is simple because it could just be any card. It could be a blank card. So as long as you start a lesson or you use your instant whiteboard, and we covered this in that recording that I told you on the YouTube channel. And then I just use my polling down the side, so I don't have to do any preparation. If you want to do an assessment, like the last one that we did, there is a little preparation that has to happen, and I'm just going to show you how to do that right now. Okay, are we good to go, Keely?
Yeah, one more, Janet. We've got a great question here. We've got a school that has a lot of issues regarding data protection and the storing of pupil information outside the school management system. A lot of the features are therefore blocked. Is there any support to sort this issue if necessary?
Yes, what I would do is I would definitely direct you to the ClassFlow support team. They are absolutely fantastic at answering all of those questions. Believe me, if it's a problem in your school, it will be a problem in another school. So I would suggest that you get in touch with support@classflow. I can't remember actually. I think it's support@classflow.co.uk. But we can definitely, Keely will put that correct email address in the chat, if that's okay, Keely.
Of course, no problem.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to switch over to my resources again. Now, a lesson-based assessment is an assessment that is embedded into a card on a lesson. So therefore, I have to have a lesson in order to create one. So to create a lesson in ClassFlow, I just go to the blue button at the top left here. Okay, so you recognize that from the classes, and I click New, and now you can see all of the things that I can create within ClassFlow. And I'm going to do Lesson. ClassFlow, when I do a lesson, all it asks me for, the only required information that I need to put is the title. So I'm just going to call it one Fun Facts today and put that in. But I would encourage you, when you are creating your assessments, to fill in some of the other information here. So I can put subject, year, country, language. I can put tags, so I can have keywords to make searching easier, a description and some notes so that I can remind myself year on year. So this is really great if you're starting to create that bank of resources to use multiple times. It's also great if you want to share with colleagues so that they know how it's intended to be used, or if you want to share it onto the marketplace for other teachers to download. I'm just going to put in the title, just for time's sake tonight, and I want to click Save. Once I've done that, it then takes me into Lesson Builder. Now, here in Lesson Builder, you can see I've got a blank page, and I've got my toolbar up here at the top, and so I could take my text, and I could type in some text. So this is my Fun Facts lesson today. Okay, so I could put some information on the page. I could go into here to my resources, and I could do a Bing search, or let's do sun. Oh, spell it right. Let's do sun, why not? And I could say, okay, I'm going to insert that onto my card. So I can insert lots of different resources onto my card. Where am I sun? There we go, it's just taking some time. Okay, so I could start to create my lesson by putting text, images, lots of other things on there. But what I might also want to do is create an assessment. So there's two different ways that I can do that within Lesson Builder. The first way is I can select the card that I want to add the questions to, and then I'm just going to select the little gear and add questions. And this takes me into my assessment builder. So here, I'm just going to put in warm up. Nope, I'm doing it in capitals for some reason, but that's okay. We'll do warm up, and then I just want to, and I'm going to save that. Okay, but before I do, there's a couple other things I could do. I could put in a description here, but it's these properties down here that I think are really useful. So I can decide if it's going to be scored or not scored. I'm going to leave it scored for now. I could also randomize the questions so that if I have 20 questions, my students will be getting them in different orders, so they can't look onto each other's and see what the person next to them is answering. I can also change the pacing and the progress within my lessons, so I could put a time limit on it if I wanted to. I could have them all progress through certain levels, so I can have questions at different levels, and I can determine that I want them to have to go through all the level 1 questions before they move on to level 2. I can allow students to skip questions, resubmit their answers, navigate the question set, and I can even have a summary provided on their devices at the end of the assessment. I'm just going to do this one here, skip questions. And you can see as soon as I click that one, it also selects navigate the question set for me here. The other thing I can do is about feedback. So I can have feedback shown on a correct response or an incorrect response, and I can even have the correct answer shown if they give it incorrectly. Okay, so these are all on my settings of my assessment where I've actually done the questions. So I'm just going to save that, and I'm going to come over here now, and what I want to do is add some questions. So there's 3 ways that I can add questions to my assessment. I'm going to have a quick look at all 3 of these, and they're so simple. It's really easy and straightforward to go, so I'm sure you guys will all go away from this webinar being able to do this very, very quickly. So the first way is to add a new question. When I add a new question, it then comes up with all of my different question type options that I can add. So I'm going to choose this one here, true, false. And when I come in here, I then have my space for typing my questions. So we're just doing some fun facts. So I've chosen this one. When hippos are upset, their sweat turns red. Okay, and it's a true or false. So you can see I've got true or false down here. I can identify correct answer, which is true, but I can also give feedback. So I might say, if they said true, I could give them a well done. And if they got the question incorrect, I could say try again, because I allowed them to retry their answers. I can also change the scoring on individual questions. So I can have it scored or unscored, and I can also change the score amount if I want to as well. With feedback, this is where I could identify what the correct answer is, if I want, and I can also do some categorizing of this individual question as well. Once again, making things easier to search if I want to use it later on. Once I've finished with that question, I just want to click Save. And now you can see over here, there's my first question, and it's showing me here the question type, and I can also see on the card that I now have one question that's associated with this card. Okay, so nice and easy. If I go back to Add here again, I can also import questions. So when I click on that, what it does is it goes into my resources and it finds any resources that I have that have an assessment attached to it. So you can see here this lesson, my fun facts, is the one we're on, and you can see by that little orange dot at the top right of it that it has a question in it. Okay, so I could reuse questions from lessons that I've created. This one's an actual assessment again, so you can see my fun facts assessment that we're working on, so I could take it from there. If I scroll down, you can see I've got some other assessments that I can use here. So I could select an assessment, like this one here, and then it shows me all the questions in that assessment, and I could say I'm going to have that one, and I think that we'll take this one. And then I just select those, and they automatically drop onto my card. So you can see now I've got 3 questions on my card there, and my little card shows me that I've got 3 questions that are now associated with this particular card. I'm just going to cancel that one to come out of there. Okay, and here you can see my different questions. Now the third way I can do it is again going to Add, and this time I'm going to do Import Random Questions. So with this, I need to select the source. So I'm going to click Add Source, and again, it picks up resources in my resources that I'm able to use. And I'm going to use this one here, an item bank. Now, an item bank is something that I've spent time on creating a series of questions. And I wanted them in an item bank because I wanted to be able to pick them out randomly and use them in different lessons that I have. So if I select that, I would then say select, and this time I just say how many questions from that item bank I wanted to choose, and I'm going to say 5, click import, and you can see it's now added those 5 questions on there. So I now have my flip chart page that has 8 questions added to it. Once I'm finished, just make sure that that's saved, and then I can exit out of Assessment Builder and come back into my Lesson Builder. And you can see here, I now have those 8 questions on there. The second way that I can add questions onto my cards is if I just add another card in here. If I come up to my toolbar ribbon at the top here, I have an assessment set option here as well. So if I click on that one, I then come in here. So you can see my first one with all my questions. And I'm just going to collapse that. And I can choose any card in my lesson that I want to then be able to add a lesson-based assessment on it. So I might call this one Practice. I'm going to save that, and then I'm ready to start adding any questions in that I want. Okay, so nice and simple. So I've got one last thing I want to show you before we finish off. So just really quickly, I'm going to ask Keely if there's any questions that have come in before I go on to standalone assessments.
Yes, we've had a question come in, Janice, that asks, can lessons be accessed by students after school as a way of setting an assessment for preparation? I know this has been answered, but just in case anybody missed it on the chat function, it'd be great if Janice could clarify.
Sure, that's a great question, and you can definitely do that if you're using a student-generated class. So if you set up a student-generated with your class, what it means is that your students would create a student account with ClassFlow and be able to connect to your class that way. When you're using a student-generated class, it means that you can set assignments for your students to do away from the classroom. That is a brilliant one with assessments, because what I can do is I could then create almost individual assessments that maybe target a specific area of learning for individual pupils that I really want them to practice away at home. Or I could put together an assessment that's a series of questions, getting them to think about a topic that we're going to be learning and get that feedback from them before the actual lesson starts. So the answer is yes, you can do that. You would do that using a student-generated class.
Wonderful. And that's everything from questions.
Okay, perfect. So I've just got another minute or two, so everybody's been really great tonight. If you can hold on just for another couple minutes before you go outside to enjoy your sun. The last thing I just want to touch on is a standalone assessment. So I've come back into my resources here, and I want to go to that blue button here for new again, and this time I'm going to just go right to here where it says assessment. Again, I need to give it a title. So I'm just going to call this one warm up, okay? And I've got all of those same options that I did when I was creating a lesson-based assessment. So I can put in the description, I've scored, randomized, and I can also do my categorization, my pacing progress, and feedback. And then I just want to save that, okay? And right away it takes me into Assessment Builder. So this will look familiar to you from when we were doing the lesson-based assessment. If I click up here to add, I can do all the same things, add a new question. Clicking that, I get all of my question types there again to use. I can also import questions and import random questions. The one thing that's different with a standalone assessment is that I could actually put sections into it as well, okay? So maybe I would want to divide them up by question types, or maybe it has to do with specific areas about what we're talking about, what we've been talking about during the day as well. But it works just the same. I select the question type that I would like, and then I have my question builder over here where I just input all of that information into it. Okay, so just going to come out of that. I'm going to say no there. But what I want to show you is once I've saved that and I'm happy with it, it then puts that assessment here into my resources. So you can see very clearly within ClassFlow, the little symbols at the side give us a good indication of the different resource types that are in there. Okay, so just to finish up, I'm going to take us back into our webinar here. So bear with me while I just back into delivering my lesson. And if you'll notice, what's brilliant as well is I've come out of that lesson and disconnected, but because my students haven't left that student browser, that student page that they were on, they come back connected to my lesson as well. So if I wanted to, I could continue with questioning now. I think you've probably had enough tonight. So just to finish off, I just want to give you a couple of next steps before I hand you back to Keely. So I just want to remind people about this button here. Now this is so helpful for help and support when you're getting started using ClassFlow, or just if you have questions as you're going along. The little arrow here, you get the drop down that will give you a link to the ClassFlow support site, or the ClassFlow help files, but also little video tutorials that are built into the software to help you get to know what things do. But the other thing I want to point out here is this little question mark. this is live chat, and the live chat is active during school hours, kind of both covering the UK and US sort of time zones. And it is brilliant because you can go on here and ask a question, and the fantastic ClassFlow support people will come back and answer your question right there. So I do highly recommend that as you go along if you have questions to ask. Okay? Now, if you are somebody who likes a little bit more organized, formal sort of professional development as opposed to just learning as you go along, we do have a site called learn.classflow.co.uk where you can go on and you sign up as a student and you connect into a class, and as an assignment you can work your way through some tutorials on how to use ClassFlow and what ClassFlow can do. So it is a really great way of just working your way through it to find out all of the fantastic things that ClassFlow enables you to do. Now, I saw Dave has put that in the chat, which is fantastic. I also just want to say to you that we will be following up this email with this webinar with an email, as we always do. And what that means is that you will get the recording to this webinar. I will also give you some links that cover some of the topics that we've talked about today, so some little video tutorials that you can watch. And this information will also be there on how to join this course to do some professional development on ClassFlow. So that brings me to the end of my part, and I want to thank you very much for your attention today. If you can bear with us just for another couple of seconds, I'm going to pass you over to Keely, who's just going to tie up some loose ends at the end of the webinar. Thanks again, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you, Janet. Some fantastic examples shown in today's session of how assessment can be used in the classroom. Thank you to our chat helpers today, Dave and Simon, and for the great questions that have been asked on today's chat. Some wonderful, great questions posted and some great comments. Please remember to continue to spread the word with others. We'd like to see you on our future webinars. We will be holding a webinar which will be taking place next Wednesday at 4:30 BST, and that will have a look at what ClassFlow Desktop has to offer. Details of this webinar can be found at www.prometheanworld.com under the events section. And just a reminder that Promethean are listening. The UK and Ireland team are actively involved in all the usual social media streams, so don't forget to follow, like and subscribe. Thank you once again to everybody joining the call, and thank you to our fantastic presenter, Janet Pranstatter. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Many thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.